I never thought I'd uncover my daughter-in-law's unbelievable secret at my son's wedding. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun shone brightly, illuminating the laughter and joy that filled the air. Elegance surrounded us, the scent of fresh flowers wafted in, the sound of bubbly laughter echoed, and my heart swelled with pride as I watched my son smiling at his bride. But somewhere, buried deep in that brightness, shadows crept quietly. It was all perfect until I noticed her. My daughter-in-law, Lavinia, stood by the cake table, her smile stretching wide. Yet her eyes darted around, betraying a sense of panic. My heart raced as I felt a tightening in my chest. What was she hiding? There was something electric about that day, an unspeakable tension that pulsed in the air. The harmony of the day felt off, like a record skipping, and I couldn't shake the fear gnawing at me. As I walked toward her, I caught my eyes on her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her glass of champagne. Liquid trembled within, mirroring my grip on my own glass, the crystal cool against my palms. I swallowed down that lump in my throat, unsure of what I might find. Our families stood around us, their laughter was a cacophony that echoed against my growing dread. Where was my mind leading me? I turned to my husband, Malcolm, standing nearby, his brow furrowed in concern as he sensed my unease. He shot me a look that said it all, as if he could feel the brewing storm in my chest. There was something about Lavinia's distant laughter that cut through me like ice. I remembered her joining our family just a year before. She seemed like the perfect fit, smart, charming, and ambitious. But now? Now, her charm felt heavy, masking something sinister. The music changed, a deep, melodious tone enveloping the room. I felt my heart drop. What is happening? I stepped closer, the crowd buzzing around us in cheerful oblivion while I was plunging deeper into uncertainty. Lavinia was staring out into the distance, her expression gone cold, like the sudden disappearance of sunlight on a hot day. I couldn't breathe. And then it hit me. The rumors I had dismissed as mere whispers reached my ears again, clearer now. A past? Is she hiding something monumental? A secret that could tear our family apart? The rambling thoughts clawed at my sanity. Everything I thought I knew was unraveling like a cheap thread, fraying and unraveling. With trembling hands, I reached out to her. Lavinia, I whispered. She turned, and in that instant, a cascade of questions rushed through me. Would she tell me? Did I even want to know? The music faded into silence, and all I heard was the beat of my own heart, a loud, echoing reminder that time was running out. The tension was unbearable as her eyes met mine. What lay behind them? Fear? Regret? In that chilling silence, the world around us blurred away. I felt the collective gaze of our friends and family, their whispers mingling with hesitation, thickening the air, and then it happened. A glimmer of something unrecognizable flickered in her eyes. I need to tell you something, she whispered, her voice barely audible above the chaos. My heart dropped. What could it be? What shocking truth was about to surface at my son's wedding? My stomach knotted and twisted as I held my breath, waiting as if time itself was suspended in that moment. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The room held its breath. The joyous celebration around us dimmed, drowning in the weight of her words. I need to tell you something was an admission that hung heavy in the air, right alongside the expertly frosted wedding cake and the soft sheen of satin dresses. The laughter of guests faded into a distant echo, and all I could focus on were the walls closing in on Lavinia and me. My heart raced, pounding like a war drum, urging me to listen, to reach out, to demand the truth. Lavinia, I breathed, my voice gentle enough to coax her forward but steady enough to show her I meant business. The world around us faded until it was just the two of us, isolated by emotion and fear. You can tell me anything. Was I really ready for whatever storm she was about to unleash? her lips parted slightly, a hint of hesitation weaving through her features. This was not the woman I had come to admire. No, the Lavinia standing in front of me seemed filament thin, a fragile creature against a backdrop of expectations and joy. I felt an almost unbearable need for reassurance. She could not crumble before my eyes, not today, but she did. Her voice trembled as she continued, I'm not who you think I am. I reached for her hand, clutching it as if it were a lifebuoy in stormy waters. Yet her palm felt quivering, desolate even, like the first step into wraith-like shadows. What do you mean? My voice came out sharper than I intended, edged with desperation. What are you hiding from us? She looked down, tears pooling in her eyes that glimmered with unshed promises. Before I met Thomas, your son, I lived a different life. One I've tried to bury. Her voice cracked like a tree splitting in a gust. A life that could destroy everything. The crowd continued to swirl around us, blissfully unaware, oblivious to the turbulent current now ricocheting through our family. I pressed my fingers against her pulse, feeling the rapid beat beneath my grasp. I had always been one to probe, to uncover, to lean into the unspoken truths lingering in shadows, but Lavinia's words brought a surge of fear to the surface. What do you mean, destroy everything? What happened? I pressed, fighting the urge to recoil at the possibilities. I took a breath, inhaling past the sharp tang of uncertainty. You need to tell me, Lavinia. You are family now. We handle everything together. In that moment, a slow, tremulous inhale filled the void between us. She looked up, her eyes swirling with a storm of emotions, and for the first time, I noticed something else beneath the fear, a flicker of relief. As if she had been carrying the world upon her shoulders, and now, even under the burden of impending revelation, she felt lighter. Years ago, I was involved with people who weren't good. They used me, she admitted, the weight of her confession slamming against my chest like a weighty stone. For reasons that are too complicated to explain here, I had to run away and start a new life. I had to become someone else. Tears spilled, tracing the delicate lines of her cheeks. I thought I could put it all behind me. I absorbed her words, feeling my heart thrum with each syllable. The secrets and shadows she was tethered to were no minor nuisances, they spelled danger. I fought to stay composed, to reassure her that we would figure it out together, whatever it was. But how could I assure her when fear gripped my own heart? Lavinia, listen to me, I pleaded, squeezing her trembling fingers tighter in a desperate embrace. You must trust us. We are here for you, whatever it is. And then I saw him. Thomas, my son. He moved through the gathering crowd, laughing and soaked in bliss, unaware of the emotional turmoil engulfing us. I felt a pang of sorrow cut deep in my gut, the realization that this truth, this rich tapestry of her past, was something he would have to unravel alongside its thread. A past that could ensnare him too. Once he finds out, she whispered, her voice almost drowned out by the music that enveloped the room, lifting spirits and forging bonds. But her words, heavy with implication, echoed ominously. In my mind. Would he still love her? Was there still a place for her in our family with the specter of such a past looming before us? A guttural noise caught my attention, my husband's sharp intake of breath. He stood at the edge of the crowd, his stance rigid as he clutched a glass of champagne with knuckles white against the crystal. Malcolm, I called softly, but it was too late. He had already caught the exchange of our harrowing confession. The glacial look on his face told me everything. He had heard too much. His expression looked like 1,000 questions, each one sharper than the last. The man who once embraced Lavinia as part of our family now appeared horrified, grappling with a secret he never wished to face. I can't let you destroy him, he blurted out, and for the first time in my life, I saw the walls go up before me, partitioning the two lives we had built against betrayal and a deepening mystery. Lavinia recoiled slightly, the spark of fear reigniting in her eyes. You don't understand, she breathed, panic flooding her voice. With Malcolm's cold gaze piercing the air, the tension escalated, unfurling between us like a dark quilt. It became painfully apparent that this was only the beginning. Secrets lay shackled in Lavinia's heart, but they threatened to explode, trapping us all in a tremor of hidden truths. Now everyone will know, she murmured, a frosty terror seeping into her voice as my world began to tilt precariously on its axis, for just a heartbeat. Amidst the chaos of the wedding fading away, I understood this was merely the prologue to an even darker tale. The truth was bound to resurface, and when it shattered the fragile happiness around us, it would change everything. The air crackled, thick with tension as Lavinia's revelation hovered between us like a dark cloud threatening to unleash rain. The guests around us danced obliviously, their laughter an unwelcome reminder of the joy we were meant to be celebrating. I felt the first tremors of panic flicker in my chest, urging me to protect my family at all costs. But how could I protect them from a past unknown, one that entwined itself tightly around the very fabric of our lives? Malcolm, I said, desperation lacing my voice, we need to be calm. Lavinia didn't ask for this. We can work through it together. Yet, even as I spoke, I felt the words slip away, echoing hollowly in my own ears. The look on my husband's face told me he couldn't bear the thought of deceptions that might tear us apart. My heart raced. This wasn't just Lavinia's truth, it was a spider's web catching all of us, ensnaring every cherished moment. I stole a glance at Lavinia, whose fingers trembled in my grasp, her eyes wide and swimming with unspoken fears. What if I told you that those people might still be looking for me? She said in a whisper, the threads of her voice snapping under the weight of her own agony. They were the kind of words that shattered the flimsy facade of celebration. What does that mean? I pressed her, my mind flipping through possibilities I never wanted to entertain. She glanced around nervously, as if shadows flickered behind every innocent face in the crowd. I thought that I could escape them, she continued, the sorrow in her voice echoing starkly against the backdrop of happiness. But what if they come for me? For Thomas? Thomas. The name felt like a punch to my gut. The last thing I wanted was for him to get embroiled in something sinister, especially not on what was supposed to be one of the most joyful days of his life. I need to talk to him, she said fiercely, resolve flooding her voice, yet the tremor in her hands betrayed her. My heart broke for her. Here was a woman who had fought so hard to leave that life behind, and now it threatened to resurface like an unwelcome specter. But no. Malcolm's voice cut through the air, resolute and cold. You cannot. You cannot tell him until we understand what we're dealing with. It's too dangerous. Dangerous? Or just inconvenient for you? It was hard to keep my voice calm, but I felt the urge to defend Lavinia burning within me. She's still the woman we know and love. It's her past. We can't allow fear to dictate how we treat her. The couples around us swirled joyfully, oblivious to the dark tempest encroaching upon our family. It was a moment frozen in time, a wedding about love marred by secrets and unresolved fears. Before Malcolm could respond, the sound of laughter caught my ear. I turned to see Thomas chatting with a couple of friends across the room. His carefree demeanor stirred something within me, a flicker of hope that reminded me of how much we cherished this family. Yet, beneath the joy of the moment lingered a gnawing anxiety, one that threatened to unravel the joy we were meant to experience today. Let me talk to him, Lavinia pleaded, her eyes searching mine, desperate for understanding. I want to tell him the truth before whoever is after me does. I hesitated for a moment, torn between the need to protect my son and my instinct to trust Lavinia. I could see the fear etched into every line of her face, a woman haunted by ghosts she had tried to outpace. But what if revealing her hidden past only unleashed more chaos? Malcolm's stance softened slightly, eyes narrowing with suspicion yet shadowed with uncertainty. What if this leads them right to him? He asked, his voice low and gruff. That I reached for Lavinia, cradling her face between my palms. We'll face this together. You are not alone in this fight. We will fight for you. In that moment, I saw the barrier of fear begin to crack, if only for a moment, as she gave a small nod. I was filled with a flicker of hope, but it felt precariously fragile against the backdrop of impending chaos. The dance of joy felt like a distant memory as the tension between us thickened, and I knew this choice would change the shape of our family forever. And then, just as I thought the world might hold still and allow us to catch our breath, a piercing scream ripped through the atmosphere. It shattered the laughter encircling us, and I turned to see a woman near the entrance, pale and panic-stricken, clutching a phone to her ear. Her words echoed across the room, drowning out the music. "You have to leave. They're here. They've come for her." The blood drained from my face as Lavinia's grip on my hand tightened like a vice. Everything shifted in an instant. I could feel the weight of the truth settling like a stone in my stomach, the dark specter of her past taking a shape I hadn't been prepared for. And in the depths of my heart, an undeniable dread unfurled like black smoke. This was just the beginning. As the chaos erupted, I was left wondering how far this unseen enemy would stretch and, even more terrifying, what it would mean for the family we had fought so hard to protect. The chaos that engulfed the room felt surreal, a waking nightmare encasing us as the woman's frantic scream ricocheted off the walls. I fought to make sense of the words that slipped through the crowd like poison, wrapping around my throat. They were here. They had found Lavinia. Panic surged, igniting the air with a raw electricity that left us frozen. Malcolm's hand found mine, his grip tightening as fear etched deep lines across his forehead. "What do we do?" he asked breathlessly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Stay calm," I urged, though the weight of my own words felt incredibly hollow. I turned my gaze back to Lavinia, her face drained of color, eyes wide with terror. The inner strength that had just begun to awaken within her seemed to shatter again, as if every ounce of resolve had been swept away by the sudden storm. In a moment of clarity amidst the chaos, I pulled Lavinia close, a protective instinct igniting within me. "We will get through this. No one is taking you away." But even as I spoke, I felt the tremors of uncertainty ripple through the very foundations of our lives. The initial thrill of joy surrounding Thomas's wedding had warped into something grotesque. It was no longer just about love and dreams, it was about survival, and the impending darkness loomed larger with each syllable spoken around us. Guests stirred toward the exits, luxurious gowns and tuxedos abandoned the celebration in a frenzied bid for safety. I strained to hear what the panicked woman still yelled into her phone. "I don't know how many. We can't let them in." I looked at Lavinia again, her mind racing, a trapped bird struggling against the bars of her past. "What do you know about them?" I asked, heart pounding as I tried to gather the strands of this dreadful web we were entangled in. "Their presence, it used to haunt me. They're ruthless. They don't forgive, and they definitely don't forget." The tremble in her voice was back, swallowing her words as she fought to maintain control. No matter how far I tried to run, I could sense them lurking in the shadows, like a storm brewing just out of sight. From across the room, I saw Thomas, blissfully unaware, still chatting with his friends, laughter spilling from his lips. Every laugh felt like a cruel mockery of our ever-darkening reality. My heart twisted, knowing he deserved a day of unfiltered joy, yet this danger cut deeper than any physical entity we could face. Malcolm moved closer, urgency bleeding into his calm exterior. "We need to get Thomas, now. We can't let him stay here." He nodded towards the growing tide of guests who were heading toward the exits, oblivious to the peculiar danger lurking amid the facade of frivolity. Lavinia squeezed my hand, a silent plea for action, for understanding, and for safety. "I'll go find him," I said, mustering the courage I barely felt. "Stay right here. Don't leave my side." As I slipped through the crowd, the laughter felt haunting, a stark juxtaposition against the chaos unfurling by the entrance. I could see the panic begin to creep into the eyes of the other guests, like an infection spreading. I pushed through groups of swirling gowns, searching desperately for my son, my heart drumming out a rhythm of dread that echoed louder each step I took, and just as I reached the edge of the throng, a familiar face appeared in the oncoming tide of kindness amid the chaos. It was Eleanor, one of my close friends, her expression filled with worry as she caught sight of me. "Have you seen Thomas?" I called, the urgency in my voice cutting through the noise. Her eyes widened, and she shook her head. "He was here a minute ago," he said, something about stepping out for some air. A cold grip of panic seized me. I could already envision shadows lurking just outside, figures with ominous intentions, merging with the night, waiting to pounce. "He's in danger. We need to find him quickly." Eleanor nodded, and together we scoured the fringes of the venue, the atmosphere laced with uncertainty and primal fear. As we reached the outside terrace, however, I found no trace of My son, only the gusting wind ruffling my dress, carrying away my cries of worry. Then, from the darkness, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of laughter, bright and carefree. I felt a pang of confusion as I turned, only to find Thomas standing at the balcony's edge, the stars twinkling above him like scattered diamonds. Thomas. I rushed to him, a mixture of relief and dread flooding my veins. We need to go back inside. It's not safe. He turned to me, surprise written across his youthful face. What is going on, Mom? Is everything okay? I thought it was just a power outage or something. Before I could respond, another voice interrupted us, cold and venomous, slicing through the air like a knife. Oh, it's far from okay, Thomas. Not with her lurking around. I spun around to find a shadowed figure emerging from the darkness, malevolent eyes fixed on Lavinia's trembling form. My breath caught in my throat as I realized that the threat had already infiltrated our safe space, and even more alarmingly, I could feel Lavinia's grip on me loosen, her gaze drawn to the encroaching danger. His past had come for her, and now it was poised to shatter our lives irrevocably. As the figure advanced, I knew we were standing on the precipice of a revelation that could change everything. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as chaos threatened to consume us whole. Would we be torn apart by the truth, or could we find a way to face the dark storm together? The air was thick with tension as the shadowed figure stepped closer, a predatory smile sweeping across his face. Lavinia, he coaxed, the name hissing like a venomous serpent, you thought you could hide forever? As the world shifted around us, I felt a mixture of fury and desperation rising within me. Stay away from her. I shouted, my voice echoing with all the strength I could muster. But the menace before us only chuckled, as if my courage were as inconsequential as the autumn leaves skittering across the ground. Lavinia stood frozen, her eyes locked on the advancing figure, her entire being trembling as if the night itself sought to swallow her whole. I never thought you'd find me, she whispered, horror creeping into her voice, twisting her features. It was like watching a flower wilt under an unrelenting sun, beautiful but achingly fragile. Do you know what they do to those who try to escape us? His words dripped with malicious glee, each syllable weighted with unspoken threats. You've made a mockery of our contract, Lavinia. And tonight, it's time for payment. Behind him, a few curious onlookers had gathered, peering from the edges of the terrace, their faces torn between intrigue and unease. I could see their bewildered expressions, the blurring line between the celebration they had just partaken in and this sudden eruption of chaos. Mom. Thomas's voice cut through the thick fog of fear. He stepped back closer to me, his eyes darting between the shadow and Lavinia, confusion painting his features. What does he mean? What contract? Before I could answer, Lavinia finally seemed to shake free from her paralysis. The fight that had dimmed in her eyes sparked again, igniting something deep within her. I want to go back, she declared, her voice unsteady yet resolute. You can't force me back into that life. The shadow leaned forward, a glint of amusement dancing in his eyes. Oh, but I don't have to. You're already here, in a world of your own making. Didn't you ever wonder why we chose tonight? Why it was always going to end like this? A flicker of realization crossed Lavinia's face, her defenses quaking under the weight of his words. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the foundations of my understanding cracking as horror peeled back the layers of this twisted reality. Lavinia, I urged, my heart pounding as I turned to her. What is he talking about? What does he mean? But her gaze fell, shadowed by a guilt that rippled through her like a storm. I thought I could start fresh, she murmured, her breath trembling. I should have known the past was a shadow I couldn't escape. They have a hold on you? I pressed, disbelief and concern clawing at my gut. You made a deal with them? Her silence was an answer more profound than words. I could feel the ground shifting beneath my family as the reality of her past surged forth like a tsunami, threatening to consume us all. We need to leave now, I commanded, grabbing Thomas' hand with equal parts urgency and fear. But the malevolent figure cackled, his amusement contorting into something darker. You think it's that easy? You can't just walk away from what has been set in motion. For every word he spoke, I felt shackled tighter by the bonds of this confrontation, each revelation trapping us further in a web of entanglement that threatened to smother our hope. Just as I began to formulate another desperate escape plan, a commotion erupted at the entrance of the terrace. Guests poured out, chaos reignited as some recognized the danger before them, a wave of panic striking as if a dam had broken. Eleanor had melded with the crowd, her concerned face now mere flashes as people surged toward the exits. But then, amidst the turmoil, I spotted a familiar figure, the staunch silhouette of my husband, Victor. He appeared, surveying the scene with laser focus, and with him, the strength of calm resolve. My heart swelled with hope until I noticed the haze of fear still gripping Lavinia, the shadows still swirling dangerously around her. Victor aimed for us, but the shadowy figure blocked his path, smirking as he relished this standoff. "You won't have her," he snarled, his voice low and commanding. Balancing on a precipice of emotions, reality became warped in that moment. I could only watch as Victor took a purposeful step forward, his eyes pinched with both love and battle readiness. "Get away from her," he ordered, the weight of a father's devotion slamming against the chaos, but as I looked back at Lavinia, I saw not just fear, but a dawning sense of recognition. "What have you become?" she whispered, a question poised on the edge of despair. Suddenly, it became evident that the past wasn't closed behind her, it was returning like a tempest ready to dismantle everything we held dear. "Stay with us, Lavinia," I pleaded, my voice breaking through the crowd's tumult. But with the world spiraling, the acclaimed pursuit of shelter began to feel like grasping for air. In a heartbeat, echoes of her past blended seamlessly with the present, and just as the air began to settle, the shadow suddenly turned to me, a wicked delight lighting his eyes as he revealed the truth in a tantalizing whisper. "You're not leaving, dear mother. Your family has a stake in this too. You've been delicately woven into Lavinia's tapestry, just wait until the threads are pulled." As fear gripped my heart and Lavinia's face shifted to one of confusion mixed with horror, I realized we'd only just begun peeling the layers of our intertwined lives. The shadows beckoned closer, and a new revelation slipped into the air, a revelation that threatened to unravel everything we believed to be true. Would we emerge intact, or had we been caught in the very web we sought to escape? The air around us vibrated with tension as the figure's words seeped into my consciousness like poison. My heart raced, straining beneath the weight of revelations I hadn't asked for, nor could I bear. The words swung like pendulums, each swing tightening the noose of dread that bound us. "Mom, what does he mean?" Thomas's innocent inquiry cut through the chaos, yet it felt like the jagged edge of a serrated blade against my heart. I felt my body stiffen, torn between the instinct to shield him and the agonizing truth that shimmered just out of reach. "I don't know," I whispered, my voice a rasp against the cacophony of fading music and swirling guests. Victor's strong presence was now a barrier between us and that figure with the tainted grin. "But we'll find a way to protect each other." Lavinia's breath hitched, and as her eyes darted between us, a tempest brewed in the depths of her heart. For a moment, that fierce flicker of defiance dimmed as memories perhaps painful, perhaps forbidden played behind her eyes. Shadows from her past loomed over her, and in that instant, I understood that she was no longer just my son's enigmatic bride, she was a reflection of the fierce echoes from a life she had fought so hard to escape. "Stop pretending this isn't happening." The malevolent figure's voice sliced through my thoughts. "She belongs to us as much as you do now. You can't outrun the past, Lavinia, and you can't save them either." My pulse raced in sync with my thoughts, the distance between hope and despair collapsing into a suffocating chasm. "Lavinia, look at me," I called, hoping to ignite some spark of clarity in her gaze. "We can face this together. You are not alone." For a fleeting moment, I saw the walls begin to crumble, her trembling lips parting as if to speak the words I longed to hear. But before she could finish, the shadow sprang forward, his presence like a dark cloud suffocating the light. "Enough." The command reverberated against the walls surrounding us, silencing all protest. "You are a part of this, Mother. Your purity, your strength, your ignorance has made them vulnerable." Thomas pulled closer to me, pressing his small frame against my leg, sensing the storm brewing beneath our feet. In a desperate bid to protect him, I ushered him behind me, aligning my gaze with Victor's determined eyes. He nodded, as if feeling the silent resolve rise within us. "We are leaving," Victor shouted, his voice echoing with the authority of a father unwilling to waver. "You don't have power here." Lavinia's eyes glistened, warring between fear and some flicker of memory that begged to be resolved. "But if I go with you, what happens?" To a flash of desperation crossed her face, and the malevolent figure laughed, the sound more bone-chilling than the wind whipping around us. "What happens to your little boy, Lavinia? To the life you would return to? Oh, but you can't run from a family that's waiting to welcome you back. You can only run into their open arms or shackles." My heart sank, knowing the truth of his words lay nestled in the choices Lavinia stumbled through. The reality of her ties wrapped tighter around her, binding her to the past she sought to flee. "Don't listen to him," I urged, wishing my words could weave a protective cocoon around her. "You have the power to choose. Find your strength, Lavinia. You're not a prisoner anymore." "Mom, what's happening? Please." Thomas's voice trembled, snatching my attention as I turned slightly to reassure him. I knelt to his level, searching his eyes for courage. "I promise, sweetheart. We're going to get out of this, you just have to trust me," I whispered, willing each word to comfort him despite the storm threatening to engulf us, and then it happened. Something changed in Lavinia's eyes. A fleeting flash of acknowledgement, like a candle flickering against the dark. "You can't have them," she spat defiantly, lifting her chin with intimacy and strength that felt like shattered glass intertwining with steel. But before she could cement her courage in reality, the ground beneath us trembled louder and fiercer than before, an earthquake of unfathomable force. A mortifying gasp choked through the crowd as whispers ignited. A flicker of panic erupted, sending the guests cascading toward the exit yet again. "Lavinia." I reached out, but she was moving toward that shadow, each step a mixture of resolve and confusion. "Let her go," Victor thundered, his gaze unwavering, but the shadow just smiled wider. "Once she steps forward, there's no retreat. Her family's fate rests upon her choice." The collective breath caught in the air like an invisible bind, and I fought the urge to scream. "No. Don't do this." As appearances began to crumble and deceit fused tightly with hope, Lavinia stopped just short. "They will find me, won't they?" she whispered, her eyes brimming with tears that reflected a storm of uncertainty. "There's no escape, not for any of us." The clarity in those words struck like thunder, rocking me to my very core. Before I could respond, just as the shadows around us twisted tighter, a distant sound broke through, an echo of sirens weaving through the night. A faint glimmer of hope illuminated the chaotic darkness, reminding me we were not yet alone. "Please," I thrust my voice across the churning sea of despair, "remember who you are." But it was the shadow who responded, his voice silken with menace. "You seem to forget, Mother, that memory will only chain you down. As the sirens wail, truth will unravel. And tonight, it's not just Lavinia's destiny that will be decided, you too shall bear the cost." With his final words hanging heavy between us, the air surged with a palpable dread that slithered deeper into our being. A surge of fear warped my reality, and as the sirens grew closer, an insidious laughter tumbled from the shadows, weaving through the gathering chaos that I knew in that moment we were on the cusp of unveiling a truth so entwined that it could shatter our world irrevocably. And as the crowd began to retreat, drawn by the siren's relentless call, I braced myself for a fight not just against a foe but a family legacy that may haunt us forever. The air thickened with uncertainty as the sirens wrapped around us, weaving a jarring contrast to the celebration that had preceded this moment. People were scrambling for the exits, their hurried movements stark against the looming tension. I felt the pulse of panic surge within me, a reflection of the terror that swirled in the air as the figure's taunting laughter echoed unceasingly. "Mom, I'm scared." Thomas's voice, small and trembling, anchored me in this nightmare of swirling emotions, forcing me to reclaim my focus on him. His innocent eyes mirrored the chaos, and I knelt once more, brushing his hair back with shaking hands. "I know, sweetheart. But I promise, we won't let him hurt us." Victor's eyes darted towards the retreating guests, a strategic mind churning through plans while his body remained resolute before us. "Stay close," he instructed, pulling our son protectively behind him, shielding him from the taunts of a creature fueled by darkness. "If we stick together, we can outsmart him." "He's right," I affirmed, battling against the suffocating tendrils of despair attempting to crush my will. "Lavinia!" I called out again, my heart breaking at the sight of her wavering form standing defiantly against the tide of shadows. "Remember, you're stronger than you think." My voice strained with the urgency of the moment, desperation cutting deeper than I had anticipated as I sought to instill courage in her heart. Yet the shadow merely continued its twisted dance around her, their footsteps closing in, whispering lies and fears of a life unlived. "Mom!" Lavinia's voice jolted me from my spiraling thoughts. In her eyes, the battle between fear and the fierce resolve of a woman reclaiming her narrative resurfaced. "What if they can't find me? What if I'm chained to them forever?" A rush of love mingled with heartache surged through me as I reached for her, but she was caught in a storm of her own, one that I could not fully see. "We will find a way, Lavinia. Don't let him poison your heart with doubt," I called, desperately wishing to pierce through her veil of fear. "Poison?" The figure chuckled darkly, a sound so full of malice that it made my skin crawl. "Is that what you think, Mother? It's just the truth dressed in the skin of reality. She is one of us, whether she likes it or not. The scars you bear can't be healed, they vibrate through her veins even now." "Stop." Victor's arm shot out to stop my movement towards her, protective instincts clawing at him to keep me safe, yet I could feel an unrelenting urge to confront that ever-growing shadow, to shield Lavinia from the bitter truths that spooled forth from it. "Do you really believe this charade will end? The sirens will not save you. They are here for other reasons, and soon you will know there is nowhere left to run." His eyes glinted with a sadistic glee, a malice that wrapped around our throats and tightened that I turned to Victor, searching his calmness for a plan, but the storm of anguish brewing inside me clouded my judgment, leaving me floundering. As I looked back to Thomas, my heart twisted at the sight of him, eyes wide with confusion while he clutched Victor's leg. "Mom, please!" he cried, a desperate plea that cut through the growing din of the sirens. "What if we leave? What if we can escape?" A wave of hope washed over me, chasing away the darkness lurking around, if only just for a moment. "Yes, we can find a way out," I reassured him, knowing that escape hinged on Lavinia's decision. Suddenly, Lavinia stepped towards the shadow, anguish etched into her features. "They'll find us, won't they?" she reiterated, and the shadow responded with a voice that chilled my bones. "Oh, they will always find you. Count on it. Don't give in," I shouted, my heart pounding against the confines of my chest, desperation flowering into fury. "You are not alone. Remember the life you wanted, the dreams you have." But I felt a fissure forming as Lavinia hesitated, her inward struggle painting her in shades of doubt. I loathed to admit it, but I feared there was a part of her that was still tethered to the past, that did long for acceptance, even if it was twisted and grotesque. "Lavinia!" Victor called, grounding himself somewhat despite the palpable chaos enveloping us. "You have to choose." In that hauntingly fragile pause, an unexpected voice emerged from the shadows, a glimmer of an unexpected ally, an elderly woman from the corner of the gathering, huddled and unnoticed amid the chaos, now free of the crowd. "Lavinia, child, remember your true family," she called out, a tone rich with wisdom that rolled through the tension like a summer breeze. That single phrase pierced the shadowy web that ensnared her spirit, and for a brief heartbeat, I saw recognition dawn in her eyes. "What do you know?" the shadow snarled, sensing the shift in the air. "You have no place here." But it was too late. The sirens swirled in harmony with the truth unfurling within Lavinia. She took a breath, her shoulders squaring under the weight of so many years tucked into quiet corners of her heart. "Mom, I just need to know the truth. Is it true? Was I meant to go back to them?" Her voice quivered, suspended just shy of desperation that I grasped for the words, emotions choking the edges of my tongue. "The truth can be a source of strength, Lavinia. You have to face it to break free. But deep down, I recognized my own uncertainty as I pulled every ounce of resolve from my being. Her gaze flickered, wavering as beneath the weight of countless memories, I caught a glimmer of what lay beneath the layers of hurt. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw possibility, the capacity for a new story to bloom amidst the ashes, but then darkness coiled tightly around us, and I sensed the dread settling over the room like a cloak. Lavinia's inner battle was far from over, and in that instant, the sirens erupted into a dissonant melody, an echo of our fate unraveling even as the shadows breathed life into steeping dread. Just as realization dawned upon her, the spiraling chaos surged, and with it came a horrific truth echoing through the shifting air. Could her true heritage be the very thing that binds us all to this moment forever? Would the sirens herald a salvation or simply usher an even darker reckoning? The looming threat felt palpable, an unrelenting storm as grounding yet as uprooting as Lavinia's own decisions tightened like a vice around our hearts. And just like that, the shadow leaned in, whispering, "The writing is on the wall, dear child. It is only a matter of time before the truth forces its way into your light." With those final words, time hung suspended, the echoes of history dangerously intertwined with our own, waiting for one woman to choose to fight, or to succumb. The moment hung like an opalescent raindrop on the edge of a leaf, any minute motion threatening to shatter the delicate balance of our fragile world. Lavinia's gaze wavered between the shadows and the warmth of our love, each heartbeat seemingly laid out on an altar that demanded sacrifice. "Mom," she breathed, her voice a hushed tremor against the cacophony. "What if the truth is worse than what I already think it is?" The wrenching sound of my heart was almost louder than the wail of the sirens outside, carrying with it years of unanswered questions. "No, sweetheart, it's not worse," I forced the words out, shielding them with conviction as they scraped against my own uncertainty. "It's the only way to truly heal. Is there even a path for healing left?" She whispered back, turning to the malevolent figure looming nearby, wearing anguish like a shawl. The realization that the rot of our history might seep into her life sent a shiver down my spine. Victor's protective stance faltered as he shifted uneasily, fear rippling through his expression. "We'll find that path together, no matter how hard it is," he promised, straining against the shadows that intertwined us. Yet even as he said it, I sensed a fracture growing in his resolve. Would our shared strength be enough to withstand the impending storm? As the echoes of the truth pressed down on me, a thought struck. "Lavinia, remember your father's stories, the way he fought through his own darkness and emerged into the light." Each memory felt fragile, shards of glass at the edges of my fingertips, but they brightened within me like able lanterns flickering against an encroaching night. A hint of recognition sparked in Lavinia's eyes, an ember igniting the pool of fear swirling within them. "But what if I'm not strong enough?" she implored, glancing back at the lurking shadow that taunted our resolve. "You are so much stronger than you know," I insisted, but deep inside, dread clawed at me, the fear that my own doubts might seep into her spirit and cradle it in uncertainty. "Remember the moments we shared? The laughter, the joy? You fought your battles before you have a warrior's heart." Just then, the elderly woman who had once been our strange ally stepped forward again, her voice breaking the smog of despair. "You carry the spirit of those who came before you, Lavinia. They live on through you. You must not give in." The shadows recoiled slightly, as if the wisdom of the woman's words had struck a nerve in their murky hearts. Yet, I could feel that Lavinia continued to waver, teetering on the brink of decision, pulled by invisible strings connecting her to both the light and the darkness. "Mom, what if the legacy is tainted?" she asked finally, her voice barely a whisper. "What if I end up like them?" Her fear felt as tangible as the pulse of the room, a thick, suffocating fog threatening to snuff out the last flicker of hope. In that moment, my heart broke for her. The truth shifted like a xylophone of shadows, echoing through my mind. The legacy was never meant to imprison, but the weight of our lineage was unmistakably visceral. We had all navigated the terrain of a painful history that threatened to consume us. "Lavinia," I pressed, my voice trembling, understanding where we came from doesn't mean becoming a prisoner of it. You have the power to break free, to define your own path. Victor stepped forward again, a reassuring presence at my side. Together we rewrite this story. You have a whole family that believes in your strength, that wants to stand with you. In that instance, Lavinia's gaze flicked again toward the shadows. A fragile dawn crept into her expression, a tremulous thread of hope knitting through her despair. But what if the truth turns us against each other? She pondered, her voice taut with apprehension. Then we will face it together, I promised, anchored by her love and the unyielding spirit she inherited. The darkness quivered momentarily, as if it felt the power of hope surging against it. But then, as swiftly as it had flickered, uncertainty crept back into Lavinia's eyes. What if the truth is tied to another choice I have to make? To them or to you? The shadows erupted, pulsating with sinister delight as they forged chains woven with our memories and our love. Choose us. You are our heart. You are loved beyond what you can see. Victor implored. His fervor filled the air, but I could hear the helplessness weaving through his plea, his heart wrapped tightly around a fear that all of this would be torn apart. Let her go. I shouted toward the dark figure, desperation rising like a tide within me, unwilling to watch my daughter's spirit drown in the cascading discord. You cannot poison our love. We will break this cycle. But the shadow brandished its sword of deception, laughter reverberating through the room as if it thrived on the fear it bred. As long as truth dangles like a fragile thread, all you wish for will unravel, and you will forever remain bound to it. Just as the laughter echoed deep within my bones, a loud crash resounded from the entrance. The doors flew open, revealing a figure silhouetted against the glowing exterior lights, a welcome specter of respite amidst the chaos, a friend, a guide into the light. I held my breath, the promise of hope perched on the precipice of what could soon become our new reality, as I watched Lavinia take a hesitant step back, momentarily distracted by the potential for salvation. But even amid the light, I felt a thread of cold fear stitching itself back into my heart. Could this unexpected visitor bring the truth with them, a truth that might splinter our fragile alliance? The air pulsed like a wound beneath my skin, each trapped breath matched against the rising tide of revelations, and I could sense the threads of our fates in the balance once more, waiting, watching. As the silhouette stepped forward, the light illuminated familiar yet unsettling features, a face that once held laughter shared over countless dinners but now bore an expression I couldn't decipher. It was Clara, my sister-in-law, the one person who had always been swept up in the veil of family secrets and untold stories. Her presence filled the room with a potent mix of relief and unease, an intoxicating cocktail that swirled dangerously close to our fragile hopes. Lavinia, we need to talk, Clara said, her voice steady yet edged with urgency. The shadows recoiled as her words hung in the air like a challenge, a doorway cracked wider to let in both light and turmoil. I saw Lavinia's resolve waver, her heart teetering once more on the precipice of uncertainty. Why now? My daughter asked, her eyes narrowing. Why would you come back when everything is already so complicated? Clara hesitated, glancing at the looming shadows before returning her gaze to Lavinia. Because I know things that could change everything. You deserve the truth, even if it hurts. The shadows hissed, their dark tendrils curling protectively around the echoes of our painful history. I felt the dread settle in my chest, a heavy stone threatening to drag us further down into the depths. Would exposing these secrets prove to be a lifeline or a noose tightened around our relationships? Lavinia, listen to her, I urged, my voice trembling. If she knows something, it could provide the clarity we need. My heart thrummed with desperation. I needed Lavinia to understand that sometimes, truth and fear mingle like old friends, ready to drag us into a pit of despair. But Lavinia stepped back, her defenses rapidly rising. If it only brings more pain, then I'll pass. I don't want to know. In that moment, another part of me felt it too, the visceral impulse to shield her from whatever darkness Clara wielded, as if ignorance could create a buffer between my daughter and the secrets that defined our lives. However, Clara pressed on, her voice lower, softer. But Lavinia, it could also set you free. What if the legacy you fear so much can be rewritten? What if there's more to your father's stories than you know? I don't want to be like them. Lavinia shouted, anguish spilling from her eyes. I want my own life. Then let that truth guide you, not bind you, Clara implored, stepping closer with a fierceness that evoked a sense of urgency. We'll face it together, remember? Victor interjected. You don't have to walk this path alone. His gaze shifted between us, and I knew he was pleading with Lavinia to consider the risks, the potential for liberation that uncovered truths could bring. Tension crackled in the air, forming an almost tangible barrier as the shadows tightened their grip, fed on our fear. I closed my eyes momentarily, searching for clarity as a memory flickered to life within me. Lavinia as a child, scribbling her dreams on paper, her passion illuminating even the darkest corners of our home. Lavinia, remember your dreams, I said softly, returning to the present. You've always had the power to shape your story. This is just another chapter. Her breathing was rapid, trembling as she weighed Clara's words against her fears. Those moments of light, the laughter that once filled our home, seemed so far away now. In that quiet war between wanting to know and wanting to protect, I felt her resolve crack like glass. I just don't want to lose anyone again, she whispered, the vulnerability raw and palpable. We're here for you, no matter what happens, Clara reassured her, her own voice quivering as if caught in an emotional tempest. You may find that the truth brings you closer to the people you love. But then, a voice cut through the thickening tension, unexpected and sharp. And what if it tears you apart? The dark figure loomed larger, slipping through the flickering shadows, its smug presence an ominous reminder that all too often, the awakened truths can frighten more than protect. Let her go, you! I shouted, fueled by a mother's desperate fear. If it's us you are after, you don't stand a chance. Lavinia's gaze flickered between me, Clara, and the lurking shadows, a tempest of emotions wrestling within her. What choice could possibly be made when each path forked into the unknown? The air felt electric, charged with the fragility of decision, just as I reached out for her, yearning to close the distance and wrap her in the safety of our bond. The air seemed to shimmer, and I stumbled. From somewhere deep within the shadows, a truth emerged wrapped in a cold, dark force, one that left me gasping. Tonight is a wedding, after all. How fitting it would be for her to discover how every family's truth is intertwined, especially as it relates to yours. The voice was chilling, reverberating through me, igniting a vision of fragility hanging by the thinnest thread. My heart raced, pounding loud enough to drown out rational thought. What terrible revelation was it speaking of? I felt Clara's tremble as she, too, began to piece it together, our horror mirrored in silence. Lavinia, I gasped, my voice barely a whisper. What if the truth connects us to them, to those we've lost? The shadows stirred, edges curling and writhing as a moment of revelation crossed Lavinia's face, an unsettling realization glimmering beyond her fear. Mom, what are you saying? She gasped, her eyes wide with confusion and dawning understanding. Before I could answer, before I could delve into the truth that threatened to shatter all we held dear, I felt a tremor run through the room. The darkness surged forth, consuming everything in its path, the laughter echoing once again, drowning out my voice as Lavinia's scream mingled with the shadows. As the chaos enveloped us, I realized my heart wasn't merely racing, it was petrified by the shadows of my own past clawing their way back into the present, and that revelation loomed. The lingering question hung heavy in the air. What if the truth we sought was far darker than any of us had ever anticipated? In the aftermath of that chaotic night, when fear had woven a cocoon around our lives, the truth began to surface like dark sediment rising from the depths of a shaken ocean. I remember feeling the air thick with uncertainty as we made our way back to the safety of our home. Lavinia, Thomas, Victor, and I, tangled together in an emotional web from which there was no escape. We had survived the storm, but at what cost? Days melted together in a haze of tension and unspoken words. Lavinia remained a ghost in our home, her once bright laughter stolen by the haunting shadows of her past. I watched her sit at the kitchen table, fingers tracing invisible patterns on the wood's grain, her mind lost in uncharted waters. Victor was distant, his heart heavy with a growing sense of anxiety that I felt in every unshared glance. Thomas, innocent and unaware, bloomed with questions that broke my heart with their simplicity. What happened to Lavinia, Mom? When will she be normal again? I longed to tell him that normal was waiting just around the corner, that the storm had passed, but deep down, I feared the darkness still hovered, poised for another strike. The sirens that had once echoed so forcefully were now mere whispers, a reminder of the battle we had faced but had not yet fully won. One evening, unable to bear the distance any longer, I reached for Lavinia's hand, squeezing it gently to ground her, to bring her back from the edge of despair. You need to talk to us, sweetheart, I urged, my heart racing in time with her pulse. We can help you carry this. Her gaze lifted to meet mine, a flicker of recognition breaking through the clouds hanging over her. How? She asked, her voice a mere breath against the weight of the world. How can you love someone who carries such darkness? Because you are more than your past, I replied, the words spilling from my heart with a fierce urgency. You are a part of our family now, and family means facing everything together. We want to help you find your light again. Victor stepped forward, his eyes reflecting the promise of love and support that tied us irrevocably together. You don't have to define yourself by what happened to you. You have the strength to create a new legacy. Every day is a choice. She blinked away tears, allowing herself just a moment to shift beneath the burden of our shared struggles. The walls began to crack, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she began to let the truth seep into the light. But what if the truth is dark? What if it tears us apart? Those words struck a chord, and I remembered the echoes of the past, the laughter, the joy, and the obscured grief that haunted us. This journey won't be easy, I admitted, squeezing her hand tighter, but every truth we unearth can set us free. You won't just rewrite your story, you'll write a new one for all of us. With a small nod, Lavinia met Thomas's curious gaze. It flickered hope through the shadows. You never lost me, she whispered, the frail spirit of a long-buried connection reaching for the warmth of protectorate love and understanding. I am still here. I fought too hard for this love. I refused to let it slip away. In that broken yet powerful moment, I felt the shifting foundations of our family release the weight of hidden fear. The air around us vibrated with the promise of catharsis, unfurling like a blossoming flower lush with possibility. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, casting a kaleidoscope of color upon the sky, I saw Lavinia's face soften, the tension in her shoulders melt away, revealing a woman ready to embrace the whole of herself, the darkness and the light. We'll do this together, I said, determination surging through me. We ended that night with conversations stitched together with threads of honesty, tales of dreams shattered yet reborn beneath the weight of truth. The next morning, we sat down, Lavinia, Thomas, Victor, and I together as a family. The sun broke through the clouds, spilling golden light into the room as Lavinia shared the fragments of her story, her voice growing stronger with every confession. Her words echoed through the moments we rarely spoke of, the pain of her past, the betrayal, the fight for survival. I could feel the shadows of uncertainty begin to shrink and dissolve in the warm embrace of truth. Toward the end, the darkness finally receded, paving the way for acceptance and love, the hallmark of family. I don't want to hide anymore, Lavinia whispered, finally free from the claustrophobic grip of her fears. I want you to see all of me. Tears brimmed in my eyes as I reached out to envelop her in a fierce embrace, the warmth of our connection brightening the shadows that had lingered for too long. You are loved, Lavinia, no matter what. And we stand beside you, always. And in that sweet embrace, as the echoes of laughter filled our home again, I felt the shadows retreat, the burdens of the past dissolving before the pulse of love coursing through us. The final taste of darkness tasted bitter, but now, a glimmer of hope danced on the horizon, a promise that together we could face even the deepest of truths. As we stood there, united in our newfound strength, I realized that true love could conquer even the darkest of pasts. It had the power to bring healing and forgiveness, bridging the gaps between pain and liberation, ushering in light where shadows lingered, and I vowed to cherish the fragile beauty of this truth, that in every heart lies the capacity for redemption, that no matter how deep the scars, we surrender ourselves to love and rewrite our story, together at last. With love pulsing through every word spoken that day, we stepped into the sunlight, ready to embrace life's beautiful imperfections, and I knew in my heart that this was just the beginning. Today, we write anew, I whispered to them, love swelling in my chest, my voice soft yet resolute, and with this truth, we bloom.